The house greeted me with the kind of silence you don't walk into, you step through it like a crime scene. The kind that breathes through the walls, heavy, cold, watching. Not the cozy kind that says, "Honey, I'm home." More like, "Abandon all hope." Madison was supposed to be home hours ago. But in her new world of priorities, hours meant another round of urgent client calls. I flipped the light switch. Nothing. Figures. She'd probably forgotten to pay the bill again, though she swore she was in charge of our finances. In control, she liked to say. Strange word, control, especially when it comes from a woman who comes home smelling like someone else's cologne. I sat at the edge of the table. In the dark, the kitchen looked foreign. Every little thing, the mug, the magnets on the fridge, stared back at me in silence. Lately, Madison had changed. She talked like a preacher, moved like someone who'd already left the room. It was as if she'd found some higher purpose. The problem was, that purpose had a name. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through her messages. All of them perfect. Too perfect. Smiley faces, enlightenment, quotes, hearts instead of words. It didn't smell like love. It smelled like a setup. By midnight, I was done waiting. Done sitting in the dark, feeling like a stranger in my own house. I called William, an old friend who understood silent wars better than most. "She's preparing," he said after a pause. "Everything's almost ready. Papers, transfers, the works. If you don't want to lose everything, you need someone who builds walls." "Walls?" I asked. "Legal ones," he said. "And I know the man for the job, Ronald James." The name sounded like a password. We met the next day. The building downtown looked undecided, half luxury, half decay. A flickering neon sign buzzed from the bar below, casting a sickly green hue across the walls. William parked, killed the engine, and turned to me. "Ronald James," he said simply, as if that alone explained the absurdity of the moment. The office door opened, and there he was. Ronald looked like a man who moonlighted as a DJ and handled contracts like a hitman. Sharp jawline, slick back hair, a tailored suit that screamed dangerous competence. His smile carried that unnerving mix of charm and threat, the kind that makes you unsure whether to run or sign whatever he puts in front of you. He extended his hand. Cold. Firm. Too steady to be casual. "Henry," he said, voice smooth as glass. "You're here to protect what's yours. Your work. Your life. Your empire." "Empire's a generous word," I said. "I've got a house, 2 cars, and a rapidly declining faith in humanity." He smiled, the kind of smile that turns despair into opportunity. Without another word, he dropped a thick folder on the desk. It hit with a thud that sounded heavier than paper. "Transferring everything," he said. "Savings, stocks, property, all into a trust. Once it's done, Madison won't touch a cent." "Music to my ears," I said. "Though lately, every playlist sounds like financial anxiety." William nodded from the corner. "We'll list you and your mother as the only beneficiaries. That makes your assets untouchable in any divorce proceeding." "Untouchable," I echoed. Nice to hear that word again. Haven't heard it in my marriage for a while. Ronald's eyes locked on mine, sharp, assessing. "This isn't a game," he said. "Once the trust closes, any claim she files hits a wall. Hard. You'll be protected." He said it like a man who profits from other people's worst days, calm, confident, practiced. And he was right. That kind of certainty was comforting. It turned betrayal into a business plan. The weight of his words hit me square in the gut. This wasn't a conversation anymore. It was a campaign strategy. Our love story had just rebranded itself as a corporate war. "Think she'll see it coming?" I asked. Ronald smiled, sleek, predatory, certain. "Not a chance," he said. "By the time she realizes, it'll be too late. She'll be out of power. Out of leverage. Out of everything." William added quietly. "We'll do it fast. Quiet. Lethal. Comforting adjectives, I said, standing up. If murder were legal, you two would be the nicest felons I've ever met. I left that office with the folder tucked under my arm, heavier than it looked. Every page inside felt like a shield, a weapon, a confession. And somewhere beneath that weight, something sparked again: resolve. My life. My empire. Not another inch without a fight. 2 days later, I found myself sitting across from William again. He had that look, the one people get before delivering news that should come with a sedative. His office felt colder this time, or maybe that was just anticipation freezing my spine. He sighed, leaned back, and said, "Henry, your wife's involvement runs deeper than we thought." I raised an eyebrow. "How deep are we talking?" He slid a file across the table, the kind that always means trouble. "She's tied up with a man named Irvin Dunn." The name dropped like bad poetry, sharp, hollow, and echoing too long. "Irvin Dunn," I repeated slowly. "That sounds like a guy who wears long scarves and talks about the universe while stealing your wallet." William didn't laugh. Not even a polite cough. "He's not just some spiritual guide," he said flatly. "He preys on married women. Breaks homes apart, drains their accounts, then calls it salvation." "Lovely," I said. "So he's a self-help vampire, and my wife volunteered at the blood bank." William didn't smile. His fingers tapped the edge of the file. "He's good, Henry. Too good. He's built a following, women with money and guilt. He calls it awakening. I call it a cult with better marketing." My fist tightened on instinct. "How long?" "Months," William said. "Enough time for dependency. Enough to rewrite her head." He flipped the folder open. Inside were photos, grainy, dull, but damning. Madison, cross-legged in front of him, eyes closed, hands folded. The man beside her matched the description too perfectly. Tan, clean, dripping with that smug bought peace. The kind of face that says I charge 10 grand for clarity. "Those were taken at his sessions," William said. "She's moved money into accounts linked to him. He's not preaching wisdom, he's running an operation." I stared at the photos too long. The images blurred, her serene face, his hand too close, the fake tranquility of two people wrapped in delusion. "And to think," I muttered, "she mocked me for listening to finance podcasts. Guess I should have joined the cult instead. Pays better." William didn't laugh. He rarely did. "She's changed," he said quietly. "Whatever version of her you knew, he's rewritten it." I leaned back in the chair and let out a short, dry laugh. "Great. My wife left me for a spiritual hedge fund." It wasn't funny. But humor was all I had left to keep from unraveling. Beneath it, something colder began to form, a quiet resolve built from humiliation and heartbreak. This wasn't about money anymore. Or trust funds. Or dinners eaten in silence. This was about exposure. About peeling back the curtain on this fraud, on the so-called guru, and saving what was left of my life. 5 days later, she came home. The air was so thick with tension you could have sliced it and sold it by the ounce. Dinner sat on the counter like a prop in a bad play. I wasn't hungry. I hadn't been for days. Madison moved through the kitchen like an actress, calm, deliberate, radiant with fake serenity. She looked holy and untouchable, the kind of calm that only appears before disaster. Then she pulled a manila envelope from her bag and slid it across the counter. "You need to sign these," she said softly. "It's for your own good." "For my own good," I repeated. "That's what villains always say before pressing the red button." Her tone didn't waver. "This is God's work, Henry. I'm dedicating myself to his path now. The divorce is part of that." Of course it was. God's plan apparently came with legal representation these days. I stared at her for a long moment. Then I said, "Fine. Then pack your bags and get lost." Her expression cracked for a split second, but she recovered, calm mask back in place. "I'm moving out," she said, voice sharp with self-righteousness. "But don't think you're walking away untouched. I'll take half, the house, the assets, everything that's mine. Wrong, I said quietly. You'll get nothing. Not a penny. Not even that chipped mug you left in the sink. Her lip curled. You think you can stop me? I'll file abuse charges. They'll lock you up before you can blink. I smiled, small, tired, but cold. Go ahead. File them. I'll make you coffee while you write the affidavit. That hit something in her. She slammed her fist on the table, hard. The plates jumped. Her voice cracked. Rage twisted her face until she looked like someone else entirely. You'd better be ready. She hissed. I am, I said calmly. More than you think. The scream came out of nowhere. Sharp. Raw. A perfect imitation of terror. Then she threw herself backward, slamming her own head against the edge of the table. Blood streaked across her temple. She didn't even flinch. She was too focused on her performance. Within seconds, she grabbed her phone and dialed, the trembling voice already rehearsed. Help me! She cried into the receiver. He hit me. Please, he's going to. I just stood there, frozen, not from fear, but disbelief, watching the farce unfold. Oh, perfect, I muttered. And I didn't even bring popcorn. She clutched her head, sobbing. You're finished, Henry. They'll believe me. They always believe the woman. Then maybe they deserve an Oscar too, I said flatly. I'll print the script next time so we can both stay on cue. Tires screeched outside. Boots hit the steps. Then came the knock, loud, final, and official. 2 officers entered, eyes scanning the scene. The sympathy was immediate. Madison had sold the performance well. There, she cried, pointing at me. He hit me. Look what he did. Tears, real or fake, I couldn't tell, streaked down her cheeks. Right, I said under my breath. Because criminals always stand calmly next to the evidence holding a half-empty glass of water. One of the officers shifted his stance, hand brushing the cuffs. Sir, we're going to need you to. Yeah, I interrupted, tone flat. Before we turn this into a bad courtroom drama, maybe take a look around first. They frowned. At what? The cameras, I said. That word hung in the air like a grenade with the pin half pulled. Every angle, I continued. High resolution. Feel free to check the footage. Madison froze. The mask cracked. Just slightly, enough to see the panic bleed through. I didn't move. Didn't smile. Didn't blink. Check the cameras, I repeated. The officers exchanged looks. Then one approached the monitor. The blue light flickered on. The silence that followed was almost holy. The footage rolled. Madison's voice, sharp, accusing, venom wrapped in silk. My replies, calm, tired, contained. Then the sound of the table slam. The moment she hit her head. The scream. The truth. The officers went still. The sympathy drained from their faces, replaced by something heavier, recognition. Madison looked small now, lost in her own theater. Her eyes darted, searching for a script that no longer existed. And then the door opened. Ronald walked in. Calm. Composed. Deadly in a suit. He dropped a folder on the counter like a verdict. Remove her from the property, he said to the officers. His tone left no room for debate. Madison's shoulders collapsed. The police guided her to the door, gentle, firm, final. She didn't look back. The door closed. And the house, my house, was silent again. Later, William dug deeper, like a man unearthing a grave he knew would hold bones. His investigation tore into the rotten core of everything surrounding Madison. Irvin Dunn and his merry band of spiritual pickpockets weren't just selling enlightenment. They were running a commerce of chaos. When William called me into the office, his tone carried that sharp edge, half warning, half prophecy. You've got a storm coming, Henry, he said. This guy's got claws that reach further than you think. Perfect, I said dryly. Because nothing screams inner peace like hired goons and financial fraud. From that day on, the quiet evenings at home felt different. The air itself seemed to watch me. Then came the calls, low, bitter voices slithering through the phone line, whispering threats like they were reading from a bargain bin horror script. "You don't know who you're dealing with," one of them said. "Let it go." "Thanks for the advice, Gandhi," I replied, hanging up. The tension kept building. One evening, I stood on the porch, watching the street through the dim, orange glow of the streetlights. That's when I saw them, silhouettes shifting just beyond the light's reach. Ragged. Twitchy. The kind of people who looked less like criminals and more like souls that had taken a wrong turn and never found the way back. Then the storm hit. Fast. Sharp. Loud. My car, the same one that had loyally survived traffic jams, road trips, and bad playlists, became their target. Windows shattered. Tires slashed. Panels dented as if they were auditioning for Anger Management, the musical. I could almost hear Irvin Dunn's smug voice narrating over the chaos, preaching forgiveness for $1,000 a session. By the time they were done, the car looked like modern art, a masterpiece of bad decisions and blunt instruments. I stood there, breathing through the metallic taste of fear mixed with disbelief. "Lovely," I muttered. "Didn't know vandalism came with poetic irony." I pulled out my phone and uploaded the footage straight to the police portal. No commentary. No complaints. Just proof. The cops showed up fast, sirens slicing through the night. They caught a few of the vandals, dragging them one by one into the flashing blue light. Up close, they looked hollow. Empty eyes. Broken expressions. People society forgets until something burns. "They didn't even know my name," I told the officer. "Which means someone else signed their paycheck?" But hope is fragile, and bureaucracy knows how to crush it. Days later, a detective arrived, report in hand, helplessness in his eyes. "No proof connects Irvin Dunn to this," he said flatly. "Could have been anyone. Could have been random." "Random," I repeated slowly. "Sure. Because random strangers always pick my driveway for performance art." He shrugged, that universal gesture of systems that don't care anymore, and left me standing in the wreckage of what used to be normal. Frustration twisted cold inside me. Sharp. Lingering. But there was no choice. Keep moving or fall apart. By the time I called Ronald, I'd reached the stage of exhaustion where coffee stopped working and paranoia started paying rent. The house still smelled faintly of glue, police tape, and betrayal. I stared through the cracked window, my nightly reminder that insanity apparently travels in groups now, and pressed dial. He picked up on the second ring, voice smooth as ever. "Henry," he said. "This better not be about emotional closure. I only deal in results. I need more than legal firepower," I said, pacing by the counter that still looked like a crime scene prop. "I need protection." A pause. The kind of silence that usually precedes either a confession or a deal. "Protection," he repeated. "You're finally seeing the world the way I do. Congratulations." "Yeah," I said. It only took being framed, robbed, and nearly assaulted to get there. Enlightening experience, really? Ronald's laugh crackled through the line, short, sharp, smug. "You've got my attention," he said. "I've got men for that sort of thing. Quiet. Efficient. The kind who make problems disappear before breakfast." He paused. "But Henry, there's a price." Yeah, I said, already opening my banking app. At this point, if you wanted payment in blood, I'd just ask if you preferred cash or transfer proof. He told me the number. I winced. Loudly. Then hit send. Watching that many zeros leave my account felt like donating organs I didn't agree to part with. But it was done. The confirmation beep might as well have said, "Congratulations, you're officially in the underworld now." "Funds received," Ronald said, his tone back to business. "Expect my men within 24 hours. They'll keep eyes where you can't. Anyone makes a move, we'll know before you do." "Perfect," I said. Does that package come with peace of mind, or just mild paranoia on subscription? He smirked audibly through the phone. Neither. You get safety, Henry. Everything else you'll have to earn the hard way. And then he hung up. No goodbye, no sentiment. Just silence. Classic Ronald. Less conversation. More conclusion. The courthouse smelled like disinfectant and broken promises. Madison sat 2 rows ahead, pretending calm, the kind of serenity that only comes when you believe lies long enough to start calling them truth. Her lawyer, a man whose tie looked more expensive than his integrity, shuffled papers with the confidence of someone who thought the world still played fair. Ronald sat beside me, legs crossed, expression unreadable. He looked like he'd already won, and we were all just here to witness the paperwork catching up. When the judge entered, the air shifted, heavy, controlled, sterile. The bailiff barked the usual formalities, and the hearing began. Madison's lawyer rose first. Your Honor, he started, voice slick with rehearsed compassion. My client has endured emotional abuse and manipulation. She seeks only fairness, a reasonable settlement that reflects her contribution to the household. I almost laughed. The performance was good. Maybe even too good. But Ronald didn't flinch. He just waited, still, calm, the embodiment of precision. When the lawyer finished his speech, all tears, poetry, and selective amnesia, Ronald stood. He didn't rush. Didn't clear his throat. Didn't raise his voice. He simply said, Your Honor, may I present Exhibit A? He placed a USB drive on the table. The bailiff picked it up and handed it to the clerk. A monitor flickered to life. The room darkened slightly as the footage began to play. There she was, Madison, my wife, my betrayer, staging her little one-woman show. The fake scream. The self-inflicted wound. The call to 911. Her words echoed through the speakers, rehearsed and perfect. And then, the rewind, the playback from another angle. The cameras didn't lie. They never do. The courtroom stayed silent, except for the faint hum of electricity and the sound of Madison's credibility dissolving in real time. When the video ended, Ronald didn't look at her. He didn't need to. He turned back to the judge, voice steady. My client has endured an orchestrated deception, a false accusation designed to steal his freedom, his assets, and his dignity. Instead, the evidence shows calculated fraud. He slid another folder forward. Exhibit B, financial records. Transfers made from joint accounts to entities tied to one Irvin Dunn. The same individual under current investigation for financial exploitation and emotional coercion. Madison's lawyer shifted, beads of sweat forming at his temple. Your Honor, this is relevant. Ronald cut him off. Highly relevant. Unless, of course, counsel would prefer to argue that theft is a form of self-expression. The courtroom chuckled quietly, even the stenographer bit her lip. The judge raised a hand. Mr. James, continue. Ronald nodded. As you can see, my client not only provided for his wife but shielded her from financial ruin. Every payment, every transfer, documented. Every lie she told, archived. He paused just long enough to let the silence stretch thin. My client was not abusive. He was patient. Which, in my experience, is the deadliest kind of mercy. Madison stared at the floor motionless, her hands gripping the edge of the table like she could hold on to a collapsing world. Her lawyer whispered something, but she didn't respond. Ronald closed his binder with the finality of a coffin lid. No further questions, Your Honor. The judge looked from him to Madison, then back again. The decision was already written across his face, quiet, inevitable, like a sentence carried by gravity itself. When court adjourned, Madison didn't look at me. She just stood there, lost in a silence she could finally hear. Outside, the world felt sharper, sunlight too bright, air too clean. Ronald lit a cigarette and handed me another without asking. Justice, he said, blowing smoke toward the courthouse steps, isn't about truth, Henry. It's about proof. And today you had both. I took a drag. The nicotine burned, familiar, grounding. What happens now? I asked. He smiled, slow, deliberate, dangerous. Now, he said, we go after the prophet. The next phase wasn't about courtrooms or custody. It was about exposure. We weren't fighting for love anymore, that had died months ago. We were fighting for the truth, and the truth needed a stage. Ronald's office turned into a war room. Maps, financial ledgers, screenshots, everything spread out like a blueprint for vengeance. He moved like a surgeon, precise, clinical, always 5 steps ahead. Dunn's good, he said, scanning the documents. He hides behind charities, foundations, offshore fronts. But every man leaves a trail, Henry. Every prophet needs prophet. We started digging. William traced the financial links, cross-checking account numbers, while Ronald focused on the people, the ones Dunn had already broken. We found them one by one, women with hollow eyes and trembling hands, each telling the same story. Promises of healing, followed by isolation, then theft. Their voices cracked the same way, quiet shame wrapped in misplaced faith. He told me my pain was my fault, one said. Then he asked for a donation to help me release it. Did you? I asked. She nodded. $10,000. My savings. My son's college fund. She wiped her eyes, whispering. He said God would repay me. Ronald's jaw tightened. And did he? She looked away. Not yet. We gathered everything, testimony, screenshots, records. Ronald built the case like an engineer assembling a weapon. At some point, I stopped thinking of Dunn as a man. He'd become an infection, one that needed removal, no matter the cost. When we finally tracked him down, he wasn't hiding in some cave or forest retreat. He was giving a seminar in a glass-walled hotel conference room, the kind where air conditioning hums like white noise and lies echoes softly off carpeted walls. The sign outside said, "Awaken your power within, a journey to true freedom." Sounds more like a subscription plan, I muttered. Ronald smirked. Let's cancel it then. We entered quietly, taking seats in the back. The room was filled with soft lighting, fake incense, and faces hungry for something, hope, forgiveness, maybe both. And there he was, Irvin Dunn. The man who ruined my marriage, my peace, my sense of safety. He stood on stage barefoot, wrapped in a linen robe like some budget messiah, smiling with that calm, patronizing glow of someone who's never been punched in the face. Fear, he said, his voice oozing confidence, is the prison you build for yourself. But I can show you how to walk free. People nodded, eyes glossy with devotion. I wanted to laugh. Or maybe scream. Ronald leaned closer. Stay quiet. Let him dig his own grave. The seminar went on, more nonsense, more metaphors about light and energy and cosmic surrender. Then came the pitch. It always comes eventually. True freedom, Dunn said, requires sacrifice. A gift to prove your readiness. To release what binds you. And there it was, the cell. Donation envelopes passed down the rows like communion. Hands trembled, credit cards slipped forward. I watched him take the envelopes with his practiced smile, gentle, soothing, predatory. When the crowd began meditating, Ronald stood up. Showtime, he whispered. We walked down the aisle. Dunn opened his eyes just as Ronald reached the stage. The shift in his expression was small but telling, that flicker of recognition before arrogance takes over. Gentlemen, Dunn said smoothly, this is a private. Public enough. Ronald interrupted. You're under investigation for fraud, coercion, and psychological manipulation. I'd suggest you sit down, but I imagine humility isn't your strong suit. The room went silent. Every head turned. Some gasped, others whispered. Dunn's mask held, but cracks began to show. He laughed softly. You can't touch me. These people are here by choice. They believe. They believed, I corrected. Past tense. I pulled out my phone, tapping the screen. The projector behind him flickered. His own voice filled the room. Recorded calls, hidden footage, proof. You'll transfer the money tonight. God doesn't bless the hesitant. The words echoed against the walls, bouncing back like bullets. Faces in the audience shifted, devotion turning to shock, then anger. The soft hum of faith turned into the rustle of betrayal. Dunn's composure broke. You have no right. Correction, Ronald said coldly. We have every right. And now so do they. He turned to the crowd. Anyone here who's been taken advantage of, speak now. Because this man's time is over. The first woman stood. Then another. Voices rose. The air thickened with rage, grief, and realization. Dunn backed away, hands trembling, eyes darting to the exits. I stepped closer, meeting his gaze. You built your kingdom on lies, I said quietly. Let's see how it burns. Security arrived moments later, local police already waiting outside, tipped off by Ronald's team. Dunn didn't resist. Maybe he finally understood that his sermon had ended. As they cuffed him, he looked at me with that faint, defeated smirk, the kind people wear when they still think they're special. You think this ends me? He whispered. No, I said. It ends her hold on me. They led him out into the flashing lights and murmuring crowd. For the first time in months, I felt something close to peace. Not joy. Not triumph. Just silence, the kind that doesn't hurt anymore. Ronald placed a hand on my shoulder. You did well. I shook my head. You did better. He smiled thinly. Don't get sentimental, Henry. Justice doesn't care about feelings. Neither do I said. Not anymore. We stood there for a moment, two men watching the fall of a false prophet. And in that silence, one truth lingered: revenge doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just exhales. The story exploded within 24 hours. By morning, every local news outlet had a headline. Spiritual healer arrested in fraud scheme, victims speak out. Irvin Dunn's face was everywhere, calm, beatific, framed between the words crime and cult. Ronald had expected the attention. He'd even orchestrated it. Sunlight's the best disinfectant, he said, flipping through the papers. Let them choke on the exposure. But I wasn't celebrating. Because exposure cuts both ways. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Reporters, bloggers, self-proclaimed truth seekers. They all wanted quotes, angles, details. For them, this was entertainment. For me, it was fallout. By noon, the cameras found their way to my street. I closed the blinds and let the world scream outside. That's when she called. Madison. The name still burned when it lit up my screen. I almost didn't answer. Almost. But curiosity, or maybe habit, won. Her voice came soft, measured, carefully fragile. Henry. I saw the news. I can't believe it. I didn't know. She was lying. I could hear it in the rhythm, that calculated tremor, the one she used to fake empathy while cutting deeper. You knew, I said flatly. You just didn't care. Silence. Then the breathy exhale of guilt rehearsed for performance. I was lost, she whispered. He manipulated me. I'm so sorry for everything. I want to make it right. Right, I said. That's a funny word for a woman who tried to destroy her husband on speakerphone. Please, she said, voice cracking just enough to sound real. Can we talk? Just once? I need closure. Closure, I repeated. You mean leverage? She didn't deny it. Didn't have to. The pause said enough. I'm sorry you feel that way, she finally said. But I forgive you. Forgive me. That was the final insult, forgiveness from the person who wrecked everything. I didn't answer. Just ended the call and stared at the quiet black screen until my reflection looked like someone else's. That night, Ronald came over. He didn't knock. He never did. She called you, didn't she? He asked. She did. She'll try again. I know. He dropped a folder onto the table. Inside, legal drafts, trust confirmations, closure documents. The end of a war written in signatures. "It's done," he said. "She's out. Completely. The assets are secure, the records sealed. Whatever she's planning next won't matter." "Good," I said. "But she's not done yet. I can feel it." Ronald studied me for a moment, then nodded. "She'll test your silence. People like her always do. Stay calm. That's your power now." He poured 2 glasses of whiskey. We drank in silence. The night hummed with distant sirens and cicadas, a strange mix of chaos and nature pretending to make sense. When he left, the house felt heavier. The same walls that had witnessed laughter now held secrets, and a kind of peace only born from exhaustion. I checked the locks twice, then sat by the window, staring at the dark street. Somewhere out there, cameras still blinked red. Someone was watching, maybe media, maybe her, maybe paranoia itself. Didn't matter. I wasn't afraid anymore. Fear had burned away with everything else. Instead, there was clarity. The kind that comes when you've lost enough to stop caring about losses. The next morning, I went to the shed behind the house, the one Madison always called your cave. Tools, papers, and a few pieces of equipment I hadn't touched in months waited in the dust. I opened the old metal case. Inside, my backup drives, my recordings, my proof. Every frame of her betrayal. Every word she'd denied. All organized. Already? I smiled. Ronald thought the war was over. But wars like this don't end with signatures. They end with silence, the kind that comes after the truth detonates. I checked the timestamps one last time. Everything was in place. By the time the sun rose, I had one thought left. Not forgiveness. Not revenge. Something colder. Finality. It happened on a Thursday, the kind of day that doesn't expect to be remembered. The morning news opened with a headline I didn't need to read. Former spiritual leader faces trial amidst new evidence. The footage played like déjà vu, Irvin Dunn in handcuffs, head bowed, his calm expression finally cracked. The background hum of cameras, flashes, and judgment filled the air. I watched it all from my kitchen, coffee going cold beside the sink. For the first time in months, I didn't feel anger. Just quiet satisfaction, like an overdue bill finally paid. Then came the second headline. Anonymous source leaks evidence linking Dunn to domestic conspiracy. That was mine. My final move. Every file, every recording, every screenshot, sent to the right people, at the right time. Not to hurt her. To finish it. By noon, her name was trending. Madison Reed, key associate in fraudulent spiritual network. Her photos from retreats, emails, transfers, all out. Public. Unfiltered. The media ate it alive. They called it a cautionary tale, a fall from grace, the unraveling of faith and greed. For me, it was just closure. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I already knew who it was. Henry. Her voice cracked through the speaker. What did you do? Something you never could, I said. I told the truth. You ruined me, she hissed. No, I said quietly. You did that when you chose him. She started to cry, maybe real tears this time, maybe not. Hard to tell anymore. You don't understand, Henry. I loved you. Then you should have stayed, I said. Love doesn't need a guru to survive. There was a pause, long, trembling, final. Then the line went dead. I stared at the phone for a while. It felt lighter now. So did I. That evening, I drove to the edge of town, the old overlook where we used to watch sunsets before everything rotted. The city sprawled below, blinking, breathing, unaware. I took out a small flash drive from my pocket, the last copy of everything. Evidence. Memories. Ghosts. I placed it on the dashboard, turned the key, and rolled down the window. The wind caught it, lifted it, carried it into the night. Let it go. The phone buzzed again, a notification from a news alert. Dunn pleads guilty. Associates under investigation. I smiled, small, quiet, final. Ronald called later, his tone almost proud. You did it, Henry. It's over. No, I said. It's balanced. He didn't argue. He knew the difference. That night, the house was silent again, but not the old kind of silence. Not the kind that felt like mourning. This one was clean. Empty. Honest. I poured a drink, turned off the lights, and sat in the dark, where it had all started. Only this time, the darkness didn't feel like a threat. It felt earned. They say revenge doesn't change anything. Maybe they're right. But it changes you. And sometimes that's enough. Subscribe to his revenge stories, for true tales of men who don't scream. They act. Coldly? To the end?